secret underground bases in real life. My name is Bill. Welcome to the Night Terrors Weekend Show. And we're starting right now. Welcome to Eldergrown. Welcome Takahama Plateau. And Gotcha Man is here. And from T Plateau, happy Mother's Day to all the, and from myself as well. Happy Mother's Day to all the wonderful mothers out there. Oh, forgot my script. The Banned by YouTube video series drops a new episode every Wednesday morning. Every subject covered in this series was banned by YouTube. Don't miss it. One way to support the channel is to join as a member on YouTube. You will find the join button right next to Night Terrors in the description below. Thank you for your support. Rhino Rex says, hey Bill and hey chat, and happy Mother's Day to all. Rapine says good evening to everyone. David Bryce says good evening to everyone. Let's get started, shall we? Here at Realtor.com is a story entitled Former Bush housing official claims government has spent $21 trillion, that is trillion with a T, building an underground doomsday base. This by Charlie Langston on May 3rd of this year. Welcome, Rhino Rex. And we have a suggestion from Rhino Rex. Thank you, sir. Got to copy that. Thank you, my friend. Joseph Johnson says hello. Welcome, Joe. And Mr. Langston begins. A former housing official. Eldergrown with the super chat. Thank you, Elder. Elder found out how to make the super chat work. Thank you, my friend. And Takahama Plateau too with the diamonds and jewels for me on Twitch. Thank you, T Plateau. An official who worked under President George H.W. Bush has made an astonishing claim that the U.S. government spent years funneling money into the creation of a secret underground city where the rich and powerful can shelter in the event of a near-extinction event. Welcome to Derek Superstrong from Mobile, Alabama. Joseph Johnson is here. Interested in the bases. Catherine Austin Fitz, who served as the Assistant Secretary of Housing and Urban Development, that's HUD, Brooke Birchalow. Kilnock is here, or Kilnook. He says, yo, Bill, there's a base in the Mount Rushmore Monument. David Bryce says they're preparing for the future. Joe Johnson says if no one knows about the base, they're okay. The bases must be very deep, he says. Derek says, what's up? I'm new to this chat thing. Just throw it out there, my friend. Who served as Assistant Secretary of HUD between 1989 and 1990. Made the shocking allegations during an appearance on former Fox News host Tucker Carlson's podcast. Although there is no concrete evidence to support her claims. Get it? No concrete evidence. Verpine with a suggestion. Thank you, Verpine. Welcome, Dom Cortez. Fitz 74 years of age, who was originally from Philadelphia, cited research by Michigan State University economist Mark Skidmore, who released in 2017 a report stating that he and a team of scholars had uncovered $21 trillion in unauthorized spending in the Departments of Defense and Housing and Urban Development between 1998 and 2015. It's a stretch of 17 years. At the time, Skidmore noted that he first began investigating the unreported spending after he heard of Fitz referred to a report which indicated that the Army had $6.5 trillion in unsupported adjustments in 2015. The report noted, given the Army's budget of $122 billion, that meant unsupported adjustments were 54 times the spending authorized by Congress. Mike Mont, hello. And typically, such adjustments in public budgets are only a small fraction of authorized spending, instead of a factor of 10 more. Initially, Skidmore said he thought Fitz had made a mistake, stating that he assumed she had meant to say $6.5 billion, not trillion. He said, so I found the report myself, and sure enough, it was $6.5 trillion. According to Fitz, who worked as an investment banker before joining Bush's administration, that money was used to fund the development of what she described as an underground base, city infrastructure, and a transportation system, read that as tunnels, that has been kept hidden from the public. One of the things I've looked at, she said, in the process of looking at where all this money is going, is the number of underground bases and transportation systems. She told Carlson that she spent 2 years researching where the $21 trillion had gone, alleging she had uncovered evidence that there are 170 secret facilities in the U.S., explaining that she and a team of investigators combed through all the data and all the allegations on underground bases in order to determine how many exist. Additionally, Fitz alleged that several of these bases are located beneath the ocean, not just underground. She said, we systematically went through and tried to guess estimate how many underground bases there are, both underground and in the U.S., but also under the ocean around the U.S. And our estimate was 170, with a transportation network connecting them underground. When Carlson asked what the purpose of these underground bases is, Fitz responded they would be used if a near-extinction event was believed to be on the horizon. However, she added that she believes these so-called bases could also be used by the government to carry out secret projects, such as a secret space program. Carlson responded by claiming that he actually knew a contractor who worked on one in Washington, D.C., stating, I remember him telling me about a power box like a transformer on Constitution Avenue. He told me that was actually the exit, the egress from the White House. A transformer box on Constitution Avenue, huh? I wonder how long that avenue is. Aloysius DeVander Abercrombie is here. Welcome, Aloysius. Carlson continued, Bugs Bunny is here. Bugs says, they developed and patented nuclear-powered boring tunnel machines back in the 1950s, and they're patented. You can look those up at the patent office, evidently. Thank you, Bugs. Carlson continued, and I thought, that's kind of crazy in the middle of this big city where I live. You could build something like that without anyone knowing it. Carlson said they'd always assumed those kind of bases were only located in D.C., and that they were meant specifically for some kind of nuclear conflagration, to which Fitz responded, some of them are, but it's all preparation for catastrophe. As for how these alleged cities and facilities are powered, Fitz said she believes the government has found a way to generate breakthrough energy that she believes is being used to keep them going. She said, quote, I am convinced that this energy exists. If you look at a lot of really fast ships flying around the planet, they're not using classical electricity. Maybe she means the UAPs. Mike Mont says the Russian boring machines that was nuclear powered. He saw something on that recently. Thank you, Mike. Fitz claims come just a few months after a Virginia-based company called SAFE, the Strategically Armored and Fortified Environments, unveiled plans for a $300 million luxury members-only doomsday bunker called the Airy. The company says the facility will offer AI-powered medical care. In other words, they couldn't find any rich doctors, wellness programs, and the ability to blend protection and luxury in a way that has never been done before. Yeah, get ready for those AI doctors, people. It's a-comin'. SAFE says it planned to build the bunkers, which will cost each entrant only $20 million in way of a membership fee in all 50 states. But it was going to construct the first in Virginia because of its proximity to the District of Columbia. A company's spokesperson previously told Realtor.com, from whence this story comes, it's the wealthiest state per capita. That's Virginia. It's ground zero for the finest demographic for something like this in the world, this being the building of luxury underground bunkers. That looks like the end of the story. Yes, I went on to research this far. We're not going to do any more because it's pretty dry. But I checked out all the sources on this story. I even got to the government report where the losses are reported, which evidently they moved around from one URL to another and at times eliminated it completely from their page. So people couldn't find it or see it. But it's up now, at least for the time being. I found the original government report and saved it. Welcome, Colin, the Crowman is here. Composer extraordinaire. And we come to our first suggestion at 14 minutes past the hour, and that is from Eldergrown. Let's check it out. Elder says, it's funny, because if there were a nuclear holocaust, all those millions of dollars will be worthless. Yeah, right. They can. The people who build those bunkers can only enjoy the money before doomsday. Afterwards, they probably provided for themselves, you would think, in the administration of the bunker, right? We have to have our maintenance people in there. The rich aren't going to do the dirty work, right? Not for the elite. And the suggestion from Elder is, oh, it's a URL. Thank you, Elder. We'll copy that. The Mystery of the Tisul Princess. Interesting. Paste that in. Here at howandwise.com is a story by Vicky VENMO entitled Mystery of Alleged 800-million-year-old Woman's Body Found in Russia. Fact or fiction? I'm leaning toward fact. And Vicky VENMO begins. T. Plateau says, don't forget, precious metals will probably be worth a lot after a nuclear meltdown, no doubt. And Vicky begins, a story of the sarcophagus discovered with the woman's body in the urban-type settlement Tsul, Russia, is not a myth for many locals who claim to have witnessed this incident. Many mysterious artifacts have already been found in the coal mines, but the so-called discovery of Princess Tsul in 1969 in the Kemerovo region, Russia, is bizarre as well as controversial. According to eyewitness accounts, various newspaper articles, and some secret investigations, a sarcophagus filled with a mysterious pink liquid was extracted by coal miners in the village of Ravchik in the Tsulsky district in the Kemerovo region. Inside the sarcophagus was an intact corpse of a beautiful woman of Slavic appearance in a transparent dress of unknown material. The mysterious stone coffin was buried 70 meters inside an untouched 20-meter coal seam. Miner Alexander Karnikov found this large marble sarcophagus with elaborately carved ornaments. The main witness of the case is a man named Oleg Klishkin, who claimed to have heard the story from a former colonel of the KGB who was involved in the extraction. I need some assistance here. Pardon me. T. Plateau says, mysterious pink liquid sounds like Pepto-Bismol. They have Pepto-Bismol in Australia. Thank you, T. Plateau. The caption for this picture Oleg Gankar Klishkin thanked Ren TV for showing the story about the discovery of Tsul and the valiant search for the truth. Vicky continues. According to his account, the incident occurred in early September of 1969. When the coffin was brought to the surface and gently opened, a putty-like substance around the edge separated and a strange liquid flowed from inside. They found the body of a beautiful young woman about 30 years old, perfectly preserved in a brim. I'm not sure what a brim is. What's a brim? We need dictionary.com, I think. Or how about Merriam-Webster? What is a brim? An upper or outer margin, the edge or rim of a hollow vessel. So the edge or rim of the sarcophagus. Attaway. Preserved perfectly in a brim, in an edge? Brim? The projecting rim of a hat. Archaic, the upper surface of a body of water. Could it be upper surface? Preserved perfectly in a brim. Welcome, Synchro 505. Mike is here, who provides all the incidental music for the show. Welcome, Michael. The brim. Huh. From context. Preserved perfectly in a brim. From context, inner lining. With a pinkish blue crystalline liquid inside the coffin. Preserved perfectly in a brim. In a brim. Is that all there is? That's all there is. ChatGPT. Ten definitions of the word brim. Edge, hat brim, border or boundary, fullness at the edge, surface level. We've done those already. Ten nouns. Edge, brim, lip, fullness, figurative, surface, overflow level, boundary, margin. Maybe the space between the coffin and the sarcophagus. Does that apply? Margin, where's, yeah, boundary, the boundary. Preserved perfectly in a brim. Preserved perfectly in a brim. We'll never know. Besides, a black rectangular metal object was placed closer to the head of the corpse. Sounds like this might be translated from the Russian. It is said that one of us, so mistranslated from Russian probably. It is said that one of the workers present at the site tasted the liquid. A week later, he went crazy and expired. Soon the news came out, and the whole village arrived to see the mysterious discovery. Later, when the finding was reported to the district center, the area commander, Alexander Alexandrovich Masalyagin, ordered to halt the work, and firemen, military, and police arrived in great numbers. What is the plaque about? No kidding. There's a plaque in a stone about it. It says, in 1969, not far from here, in Russian, during the development of a coal seam, a burial place was found. In the 2-meter marble sarcophagus, there was a beautiful young woman. Upon the age of the coal seam in which the sarcophagus was found, the woman must have been buried hundreds of millions of years ago. A brick-colored helicopter flew overhead from the region and handed over a dozen respectable comrades in civilian clothes, who immediately declared that the place was contagious, and ordered those present to move away from the coffin. All the necessary evidence was collected from the site, and the coffin was taken away by helicopter by the authorities' order. According to an unknown professor from Novosibirsk, the age of the burial is at least 800 million years, challenging Darwin's theory of evolution. The alleged woman in the casket was buried in the Carboniferous period of the Paleozoic era, millions of years before the appearance of the dinosaurs. Welcome, Ryu, 1972. Oh, we have Russian newspapers. The researcher who examined and analyzed the fabric used to make the dress were baffled because they could not determine its nature or its age. They concluded that the technology used to manufacture the fabric is unknown today, and that it was much more advanced than present-day technology. The composition of the pink-blue liquid had not yet been determined. Only some of its constituent components had been identified, and were similar to essences of onion and garlic. Let's see a picture of this vampire close up, shall we? Oh, looks like there's a picture of the sarcophagus as well. Well, let's see if it is. Oh, that's it. Maybe artist's interpretation, artist's rendition. Open image in new tab. Take a closer look at the Russian artist rendition. Pretty simplistic. But there is a sketch in the other picture. Of the mystery woman herself, who appears to have had raven black hair. Indeed. In 2007, Roman Yanchenko, a journalist from the Russian newspaper Sidepo, decided to verify the legends of the Tsul princess. So he visited the place where it happened. According to his research, Tatiana Pavlovna Karnikova, a wife of miner Karnikov, there's no verb in that sentence. A wife of miner Karnikov, who died 5 years ago as a result of a prolonged serious illness. Besides, others who worked in a quarry died in a series of strange circumstances. The quarry was closed 4 years later in 1973, and it's now covered by dense forest. Not sure what they're trying to say with that sentence. This was evidently translated from the Russian, and not very well. Looks like not even AI translation here. Looks like Google translation. Some researchers compare the legend of Princess Tsul with Alexander Pushkin's poem, The Tale of the Dead Princess and the Seven Heroes. And here, part of that poem from Pushkin. Welcome, Joseph Winnie. Welcome, Jack 11. Mystery Flavor is here. There is a high mountain behind a slowly flowing river. There is a deep hole in the hole is a sad darkness. The glass coffin is moving in the chains between the pillars. There is no trace of anyone. Around that empty place, in that coffin is his girlfriend. Boy, is that poem lousily translated. Just really sad. I could do better just rephrasing the English. The details mentioned by Oleg Kalushkin in his article also cannot be ignored. Firstly, the village of Ravchik really exists, and there, in the indicated years, a coal mine was actually being worked. In fact, Alexander Ivanovich Karnikov worked on the development of coal. However, he was not a miner, but one of the mine's blacksmiths. Although very little is known about the nature of the strange findings, residents of the village of Ravchik are willing to confirm the story of the Tsulsky princess. Well, it looks like these are the sources. Because it looks like the story is over. Let's see what we have for sources. Fact or fiction, ancient patriarchs, and Russian scientists discover. No, that's not what I want to do. Of course, you have to move the bar every time you open a link. Thank you, Medium. Again, it went to that website. Okay. Let's go check these out. Got to move this thing if I can. Thank you. Soviet cover-up of sarcophagus with body found in preserving liquid. Here at ancientpatriarchs.wordpress.com. Here follows an old Soviet cover-up of a perfect marble coffin filled with fluid, preserving a princess found 70 meters deep in a coal seam in 1969. The government sent men in black to confiscate the evidence, while many village witnesses were offed because they did not hold their tongues. Elder says the article on that website's all over the place, I bet. Darwinism and its propaganda, translated from the Russian. In spite of her age, the woman was wonderfully preserved. She looked like she was alive, like a sleeping princess. But because of the bluish-pink liquid in which she was immersed for millions of years, she was proof. I can't. It literally reads, to be, they were not imperious above its beauty. Okay, next. Thank you, Elder. At Inquisitor.com, story by John Thomas Didymus. Didymus, of course, meaning twin in Greek, right? Verpine says, I wonder if the princess is related to the one they found on the moon. Interesting question. Frogfan is here. Frogfan asks, was Alexander Alexandrovich related to Roseanne Rosanadana? Good one, Frogfan. And John begins. Bizarre story that originated from the conspiracy theory blogosphere went viral on social media. This dated 2017. Some claim that story originated from a Russian language documentary. But we saw pictures of not only of the documentary, but the plaque that memorialized the event on site. 2 of the newspapers that covered it in Russia. There's also a Russian language video, evidently. And here it is. We dare not. We dare not play it. I was thinking maybe they're looking at stills. That's probably where they got the news. Maybe that's whether they got the. Perhaps that's from where they obtained the newspaper pictures. This one says, Alexander Masalagina, the official in charge at the site, located near the small and remote village of Ravchik-Tusulskago in the Kemerovo region of Russia, ordered work to stop immediately after the miners discovered the mysterious and skillfully crafted marble coffin, according to ancient patriarchs. And ancient patriarchs is here? No, we didn't get that. This is the ancient patriarchs, the one that's all over the place. Interesting. Elder says there were many more videos about this story than articles. Thank you, Elder. Oh, it's not going to let us read it at Medium. That's a shame. Wait, maybe it will. Huh. Oh, this has a something else in the URL for Medium. This is Kabbalatotroy.medium. Yeah, that's right. Kabbalatotroy. So, and how you spell it? Cabal with 2 L's, O-D-E, and Troy. Like Helen of. The whole story is based on eyewitness accounts, various newspaper articles, and some secret investigations that showed the identity of the princess, because her DNA was the DNA of a modern Russian. This place turned out to be interesting from the point of view of historical geodesy. It turned out that the town of Ravchik lies exactly perpendicular to the Stonehenge meridian. On one of the lines of the EP system runs through it, a tangent to latitude 60. The more detailed description of this case is an account by Oleg Kalushkin, a story he heard from a random fellow traveler, a former KGB colonel who was involved in the case. There are also eyewitness accounts of an unusual flying object heading for Rust? Not sure what that refers to. The object was completely silent and not visible at first. Then a temporary glow appeared at 3 points, which was then repeated in the same way, but much closer. As the triangle of light points increased, it appeared that it was in the area above Lake Concord, about 4 kilometers from Tusul. This taken from Kaiser, from the December 9th, 2018 edition of Spletnik magazine. Obviously a Russian export. But this evidently from an article by Oleg Kalushkin from the newspaper Arkham. During my last trip to Moscow, on the train I met a man with a stern and unusually intelligent face, like the face of Stirlitz. At first he was silent, and this is a very long story. Well, let's just read the captions here. Photo of the mining place. Well, they said it was covered with forest. Somebody did. There's forest behind the scene. Vladimir Lemekin took the author to the place where the miners worked in September 1969. So yeah, pretty deep forest. The mining factory in its heyday. Boy, it was huge. Excavation in that area, claims the caption. Coal mined in that area, claims the caption. Workers extracting coal. Doesn't say in that area, but must be underground. I don't see anything but darkness, and looks like two beams that are holding up the ceiling. There's a cross beam. Interior of one of the mining galleries. More coal workers. Does not say in that area. Simulated picture of where the sarcophagus was found. 70 meters below. Oh, that's a trail. Like up the mountain or something. Looks like. So that's inside the side of a mountain, basically. Maybe that's where they started? It just is labeled sarcophagus. Not the sarcophagus. But who knows? Maybe they did put it out in the weather and let it get all messed up, and now it's in some basement in Russia. A simulation of the pinkish blue liquid, which is really only blue. Here it claims is the appearance of the liquid. Yeah, I'm sure. The commemorative plaque. In 1969, can I recognize any words? I cannot. This font being, of course, Cyrillic. A clip from one of the videos, I guess, right there. The supposed transport for the helicopters. Eldergrown says it's a side view. Eldergrown says what coal may look like. The article by Oleg Kulushkin. Another article by Kulushkin, maybe the same one. It is the same one. Volume 124. It's a tourist attraction. The place where Princess Tsul was discovered in the 60s. And here is in 1969. It begins, and there's the princess. Spend your, what is it? Not rupees, that's India. Rubles? The rubles? I must find out. Rubles. Eldergrown confirms. Thank you, Elder. Spend your rubles in Tsul. The sarcophagus. They have a picture of the sarcophagus. Obviously not the one previously shown, but this shows little to no signs of weathering. This we must examine. Got a chip. Whoops. Got more than one chip. I'm so picky. Not part of the original sarcophagus. This part of the stone part underneath, right? Because that's where they put the lighting. So that's the very bottom of the sarcophagus. That is elaborate. They must have done a really good job cleaning the coal dust off it. Next up, a suggestion by T. Plateau at 46 minutes past the hour. And that is got to get rid of this one. Thank you, Elder. From T. Plateau. The weird death of Charles C. Morgan in 1977. Got something from grunge. We've used grunge before. And variety is the spice of life. True crime never sleeps. That I don't remember. And here's a story by Larry M. Lease at truecrimeneversleeps.com entitled The Strange Death of Charles Morgan, who was born in 1867 and died in 52. According to his head marker, being, and let's see, how old was he? 67 minus 50 was 15, so 85? He was 85 years old. (1952). But it begins on March 22nd, 1977. Charles Morgan, a 29-year-old escrow agent in Tucson, Arizona, went missing after leaving his home, seemingly abducted on the way to his escrow company. 3 days later, at 2 a.m., he finally returned. His wife, Ruth, reported that he had a plastic handcuff around one ankle and handcuffs around his hands. He pointed to indicate that he couldn't speak. Ruth gave him a pen and paper, and he wrote that there was a hallucinogenic substance in his throat that could destroy his nervous system. She wanted to call the cops or get in contact with a physician, but Charles told her no and said it would put their family in danger. Ruth resigned to nursing him back to health, after which he told her that for the past 2 or 3 years, he had been working in secret for the Treasury Department. He claimed his abductors took his Treasury ID, giving her no more details. On July 5th, 1865, the U.S. Secret Service was formed to catch counterfeiters. Evidently, the lives of the 85-year-old who died in 1952 and the Treasury agent who came home to his wife in 1977, crossed paths at some point, in some ironic juxtaposition. In 1867, the mission of the Secret Service broadened to detecting persons perpetrating fraud against the government. It was part of the Department of Treasury until 2003, and now is part of the Department of Homeland Security. Excuse me. Two months after Charles' disappearance, he was reported missing again. After 9 days, Ruth received a phone call. An unidentified woman told her, "Chuck is all right." Ecclesiastes 12, 1-8. And then the woman hung up. 2 days later, on June the 18th, his body was discovered lying 40 miles west of Tucson, near his Mercury Cougar. Charles C. Morgan had been shot in the back of the head by his own gun, a .357 caliber Magnum revolver. As Clint Eastwood might say, the most powerful handgun in the world. Yeah, it jumps right from Secret Service to back to 77 Charlie. He was found wearing a bulletproof vest that he reportedly had been wearing after his first disappearance, a belt buckle that concealed a knife, and a holster. A pair of sunglasses were also found at the scene, but they were not his, according to Ruth, I guess. Pima County Sheriff investigators searched his car, finding several weapons and a cache of ammunition. The car had reportedly been altered, so it could be unlocked from the fender. On the rear seat of the car, one of Morgan's teeth was discovered, wrapped in a white handkerchief. But that's not the strangest thing the investigators found. Green Tea, welcome. T Plateau says plastic handcuff. Yeah, zip tie. Bizarrely, there was also an item pinned to Morgan's underwear, a $2 bill, with which the Treasury also has to do, I guess. Treasury Department. With 7 Spanish surnames written upon it, as well as a map of the border area. The map led to two, I'd like to see that bill. The map led to 2 towns, Robles Junction and Salacity, an area between Tucson and Mexico. Those towns had a reputation at the time for smuggling, a fact that will become important. Above the list of surnames was the note Ecclesiastes 12, with arrows pointing to the numbers 1 and 8 within the bill's serial number. And is that the message she got? Yes, Ecclesiastes 12, 1-8. Some of the writings on the bill had alleged Masonic references, besides the Masonic references built into the bill. Charles also had a piece of paper with directions to the site where he was found. The directions were in his own handwriting. Medical investigators say he had been unalive for only 12 hours when he was found. Strangely, there were no fingerprints found at the scene, not even on the gun. On Morgan's hand, they found gunpowder residue. It is likely for this reason the sheriff's department labeled it as suicide, and for years that seemed to be the end of the Charles C. Morgan case, a supposed self-harm with twisted clues that seemed to suggest otherwise. Theories that it was in fact self-harm. There was gunpowder on his hand, and the gun he used was his own. Yet Morgan was right-handed, and the gunpowder and residue was on his left hand. It doesn't make sense for him to use his left hand to shoot himself in the back of the head, let alone use such an awkward position to unalive himself. Furthermore, the crime scene suggests the presence of someone else. Take Morgan's tooth, for example, or the pair of sunglasses which didn't belong to him, and the $2 bill. I take it the bill did not have his handwriting upon it, but someone else's. T. Plateau says, all is vanity. Is that an Ecclesiastes verse? Another theory. Morgan was unalived due to being in the Secret Service. It should be noted that Morgan was not definitively in the Secret Service. But if he was, as he said to his wife, it's possible this led to his unaliving. Morgan allegedly had done escrow work for organized crime families. Maybe that was his real job. Shortly before his unalivement, Morgan had also testified in a secret state investigation on illegal activity on both sides of the Arizona-Mexico border. He was a reluctant witness for the Arizona Attorney General's office in the questioning of a now-closed Tucson bank. Was Morgan alluding to this case when he told his wife he had been undercover with the Treasury Department? Rhino Rex quotes, "Vanity of vanities, all things vanity and vexation." One of Morgan's daughters, Megan Hitty, has stated, quote, "My father had a lot of information about people here in Tucson that could have been very detrimental. There was a lot of information about politicians, people who are still alive that work in our government. They wanted to silence him." Another theory is Morgan was unalive due to other illicit activity. Two days after Morgan's death, a woman who called herself Green Eyes called the Pima County Sheriff's Department and said that she had met Morgan in a motel before she died. The Pima County Sheriff's Department had confirmed that Morgan had been staying in a West Side motel for over a week before he was shot. Green Eyes said that Charles showed her a briefcase full of thousands in cash, which he claims was to buy him out of a contract the mob put on his life. Following her husband's death, Ruth had a visit from two men claiming to be FBI. She said they flashed their identification quickly and tore the house apart and left. But she never learned what they were looking for, or if they found it. Almost 13 years after his unalivement, in 1990, on an episode of NBC's Unsolved Mysteries, they covered the Charles C. Morgan case. Okay, wait a minute, people. So why at the top of the story, right, do they have a head marker that has Charles C. Morgan, who died in 1952? Totally misleading. So no juxtaposition. Just someone who can't use Photoshop. All right. Morgan has a strange history. Morgan was dealing with upwards of $1 billion of gold alone. Okay, and why we know this is because the Unsolved Mysteries TV show sparked a flux of incoming calls that helped Don Devereaux, a journalist for Unsolved Mysteries, who pieced together that Morgan had been involved in money laundering and large transactions of precious metals, gold and platinum, that would occur regularly between the years of 1973 and his unalivement in 1977. Morgan was dealing with upwards of $1 billion of gold alone. There were perhaps other undercover CIA agents involved. No, CIA was not foreshadowed. Most likely to pocket money for themselves. The CIA suddenly appears. Allegedly exiled Vietnamese government officials were involved, as well as people from the Department of Defense. Morgan was also linked to a money laundering scheme with fraudulent real estate. And one of Morgan's clients was a mafia crew member. Of Joseph Bonanno, Sr. Devereaux also found that Morgan kept copies of all the illicit transactions made, thinking they could save him in the future. Good investigator. Were these paper trails of illegal transactions the reason why Morgan was unalived? Perhaps lending credence to the idea that Morgan was silenced, a similar crime occurred around the airing of the Unsolved Mysteries episode. A Phoenix, Arizona resident, Doug Johnson, left for his night shift at a computer graphics company. He was found unalive an hour later in his company's parking lot, slumped in the front seat of his car, having been shot once behind the left ear. Okay, we're going to skip his details. I take your word for it. Further backing up the idea that people looking into Morgan were being silenced, a writer from Washington, D.C. named Don Casolaro had reached out to Devereaux, asking for information on Morgan's gold transactions. Before Devereaux could send the information, no questions asked. Or maybe it was an offer he couldn't refuse. Casolaro was found unalive in a hotel room in the bathtub, with his wrist cut deeply, approximately a dozen times. Well, it's also supposed to be the honorable way out, right? Please do not attempt this at home. But that's the Roman way, right? I get all my mob knowledge from Godfather movies. Police ruled it a suicide. Don Casolero's brother, a doctor, said that Dan was so squeamish he would barely let his brother prick his finger for any blood work, which does not add up with Don Casolero's method of self-harm. Devereaux believes the same people involved in the 1970s activities are still out there. They perhaps silenced Morgan and writer Dan Casolero, and perhaps tried and failed to silence Devereaux. Oh, I skipped over a threat to Devereaux's life, huh? Curiously, Don Devereaux, the journalist who previously investigated Charles Morgan's case, lived across the street from the site where Doug Johnston was found. Oh, Doug, the Phoenix, Arizona resident, was the other casualty. So, maybe they got their house numbers mixed up. Okay, that's why they introduced him. T. Plateau confirms Casolero did not self-harm. He was deathly afraid of blood and needles. Sorry about that chuckle. Jason Lionbar is here. Welcome, Jason. Jason has provided many topics for the show. Next up at 7 minutes past the hour, if I can grab a writing utensil here, is a suggestion from Gotcha Man. Excuse me. T. Plateau says Devereaux was shot at a few times. Thank you, T. Plateau. And T. Plateau would know. It was her suggestion. Thank you, T. And the suggestion from Gotcha Man is oh, it's a URL. Thank you, G-Man. Here at freerangeamerica.us. You can buy a US domain if you want to. A lot of .coms are taken that have the names you want to put up there. Here's a story by Alice Jones Webb entitled Creepy Things Hunters Have Seen in the Woods. What's the picture look like? A creepy thing. I gotta see this. That looks creepy. I gotta see this. Let's go all the way. Black gloves. Looks like he's a scarecrow come to life. Straw sticking out of his sleeves. The sigh. And the scarecrow head. If you know, you know. Hunters spend a lot of time in the woods. Most of us can move through the outdoors with a sense of confidence. I don't know, I think most people live in the city, don't they? Built through an intimate familiarity with nature. In fact, I think some city people are afraid of the woods. The fact that we're often toting weapons also helps mitigate the fear factor. Non-hunters usually associate with dark, remote places. That doesn't mean we don't run into some seriously creepy things that cannot be explained away. There's a reason so many popular horror films take place in deep, dark forests. Admittedly, the woods can be a freaky place even for seasoned hunters, and few people who venture into the back country regularly haven't come away with at least one experience that made them consider not going back. In the first category, weird skeletons. Not just skeletons, but weird skeletons. This looking like, oh geez, I don't know, I couldn't identify it. I wonder if AI could identify it. Okay. Save image as JPEG, that's good. Let's go to the show folder. Drop it in there. Go to AI. Attach. Photo. From the show folder. Where's a JPEG? There's tons of JPEGs. Sort by type, please. Skull and Woods. Got to be that one, right? Uploaded. You are a forensic specialist in skeletal remains. What's the name of the study of animals? Zoology? Your doctorate is in zoology. It's got zoo in it. What animal belongs to the skull in the picture? And it said and instead of in. That's Dragon's fault. Let's put in here and go. Observations. Conclusion. The skull most likely begins to a canid, specifically a domestic dog, or a coyote. The distinctions between a dog and a coyote skull can be subtle. Dogs tend to have broader, shorter snouts, and more variation due to breed diversity. Coyotes have narrow snouts, more uniform tooth placement, and often a more defined sagittal crest. What is a sagittal crest? A ridge of bone that runs lengthwise along the midline at the top of the skull. What can we see? Why is that there? Where's the picture? Oh, it's in the folder. It's also here, though. Can't see the top of the skull. And they said something about the teeth. The teeth, key points. Oh, I'm on sagittal crest here. Observation conclusion. Shorter, broader snouts. What did they say about the teeth? Oh, uniform tooth placement in coyotes. Uniform tooth placement. What is meant by placement in uniform tooth placement? How evenly spaced, aligned, and consistently shaped. Okay, well, that tears it then. Because these are not evenly lined and consistently taped. Taped? Whatever that word was. You got two longer ones here. Long ones here, short ones in the front. Yeah. That's a dog. What breed of dog? No. These are the bones Reddit user MS461 stumbled upon. No mystery anymore. But it is weird. It's weird looking. I never realized that the jawbone was like that, wasn't like an inset into the top of the skull like that on a canid. And here's his story. Who cares anymore? The Sasquatch, the famous Patterson film. It says here Patterson Gimlin film, alleged to depict a female Bigfoot. Alleged sighting of a Sasquatch from Facebook, courtesy Aslan Paris. Rhino Rex says, I don't believe it is insert like that. Pretty sure it's AI. Oh, there's AI. There's an AI analyzer for pictures. Let's find one. Woo. Get up there. Online AI picture analyzer. A common search. Free. Free is good. Whoops. Because of the dragon, it jumped away from free. Free. Uploaded files are deleted immediately. After the analysis, I assume. Upload an image. Preview. Okay. And skull, and it's right here. There it is. And where's the go button? Show advanced path. When decoding says blah, blah, blah. Where's the go button? Start magic. Output. It shows a skull surrounded by leaves. If you have any other questions, that's not the analyzer I want. Analyzer of whether a picture is AI generated or not. Rhino X has a link. Let's take a look. The previous page is sending you dog skulls. That's pretty big, but it's underneath. Yeah, it's underneath. There's probably a name for that. It's underneath some kind of bone ridge. It does look AI generated. Same thing here. 3 different breeds. The German Shepherd. The rabbit has the same bone structure. So does the mink, although it doesn't show the lower jaw on the mink. Domestic cats, which is not a good angle. And that's it. Thank you, Rhino Rex. There, D-copy it's called. Courtesy of the dragon. Looks much better too, less ads. Loading. There's a little circle spinning here. You can't see it. Prediction real. Probability of AI less than 1/5 of 1%, or actually 1/5 of 1% is the probability of AI. But why? Shouldn't there be a ridge over the top? There should be. Is there any sign of it? AI is wrong. That's got to be AI. Where is that picture? Yeah, that's freaking AI, excuse my language. Not even a suggestion of it, of that ridge. Unless this dark black part here is that ridge. And the jaw part has slipped down from beneath the ridge. There is a ridge here. And yeah, I say at this point I'd have to trust the analysis of the free online service. Big Al1, welcome, sir, says the mandibular joint is set high near the temple. It's a mandibular joint. I imagine joint meaning the association between the ridge and the top of the jaw. T. Platon wants to get back to the creepy stuff. So far, it's been a disappointment, and the third one is no exception. Strange lights in the trees. No reflection upon Gotcha Man. Neither of us do any vetting. Rhino Rex concurs with the non-AI conclusion. Thank you, Rhino. Creepy cabins. Yawn. And end of story. Alice Jones Webbs, the author, is a lifelong hunter, experienced shooter, mother of 4, and up-and-coming outdoor enthusiast, and one of Free Range American.US's most prolific contributors. She grew up slinging bullets and broadheads at Virginia whitetails, turkey, and game birds. But her favorite hunting experience has been chasing bull elk in the Colorado backcountry. Oh, come on, never want to sit still and look pretty. Come on, it's a little misogynistic, isn't it? Alice is also a self-defense instructor and competitive archer. She currently resides in North Carolina with her children, her non-hunting husband, and a well-stocked chest freezer. Rhino says, Alice Jones. For a second, I thought you said Alex. And at 25 minutes past the hour, we come to a suggestion by Rhino Rex. And that is, thank you, Gotcha Man, for everything. The Jamison family disappearance. Wikipedia covers it. All that's interesting. The Cinemaholic. Strange Outdoors. ColdCaseExplorations.com. Where there's an article entitled Quick Navigation. Entitled, What Happened to the Jamison Family? How do I get rid of that? Just click anywhere else? No. Oh, here. No author credited. Check the bottom. No author given, and way too long to cover all the salient points. Oklahoman.com. The online presence of the newspaper, evidently, where you can search for and place classifieds. Here's a story at, I'm sorry, we covered that. Here's a story by Andrew Niddle. There's a K in the beginning of the name. I assume that is silent. Entitled, Jamison Family Was Threatened by Relative Before Vanishing Records Show. KANTA. Less than 6 months before they vanished. The Jamison family was threatened with violence by one of their closest relatives. A petition for a protective order filed by Bobby Jamison reveals. In the petition, Bobby Jamison claimed his own father threatened to unalive him and his family on at least 2 occasions. In November 2008, that's just, I can't even imagine something like that happening. And in late April 2009, Bobby Jamison, his wife Sherilyn, and daughter Madison went missing in October of that year, roughly 6 months after the petition was filed in McIntosh County. Excuse me. The missing man described his father, whose name was Bob Dean Jamison, as a, quote, very dangerous man who thinks he is above the law. He claimed that his father, who was 67 at the time, was involved in women of the night, gangs, and a drug that starts with M and rhymes with Seth. The remains of 3 human beings described as law enforcement officials as being a child and 2 adults were found November 16 in northeast Latimer County, about 3 miles from where the Jamisons' pickup was found abandoned, 8 days after they were last seen alive. Since the discovery, many have speculated that the remains are those of the missing family. Damn it, where is the dental record, people? When is this dated? We're found November 16th. This is dated 11 days later, so that explains that. Bobby Jamison does not say in the petition how his father threatened to unalive him and his family. But he did write that his father hit me with his vehicle in 2008. On November 1st. What year is this article again? 2013. Quote, "My entire family is severely scared for their lives," Bobby Jamison wrote in the petition. "I am in fear at all times." The protective order was dismissed in 2009 after a judge heard testimony from those involved. Bob Dean Jamison, the father, died in December 2009, about 2 months after the Jamison family went missing near the town of Kinta. Jack Jamison, the father's brother, said he doesn't believe Bob Dean Jamison was involved in the disappearance of the family. Jack said, "He was either in a hospital or in a rest home. I just don't think he was involved. He was disturbed at the time, but I'm pretty sure he was not capable of being involved in that." Like many others, Jack Jamison said the disappearance of his nephew and his family remains a mystery. "It has me plumb puzzled," he said. "Nothing about it makes sense, except the obvious." Attempts to reach Bob Dean Jamison's wife of 40-plus years, Starlet, were not successful. The couple divorced in the months before his death. In addition to filing the petition for protective order, Bobby Jamison was suing his parents at the time of his disappearance, claiming he was owed property for himself and 2 vehicles for his daughter. He claimed in a lawsuit he had worked for free at one of his parents' businesses. The attorneys wrote in a petition, Bobby Dean Jamison enticed Bobby Jamison to work free at a gas station in Oklahoma City for numerous years without any compensation. The lawsuit remains pending, even though no one's alive to, I guess his lawyers are contending it for the estate. In the months following the Jamison family's disappearance, former Sheriff Israel Beauchamp said the investigation into Bobby and Sherilyn Jamison led him to believe the couple may have been scammers. The couple were receiving disability checks before going missing. I don't think, even if that's true, I don't think it deserves their execution. Beauchamp is no longer sheriff. Theories abound. Group self-harm. What was found inside the truck would only deepen the mystery surrounding the family's disappearance. Inside the locked pickup, they found Bobby Jamison's wallet, a GPS unit, clothing, Sherilyn's purse, a cell phone, and $32,000 in cash stuffed in a bank bag beneath the driver's seat. The family dog Maisie was also found inside the truck. Maisie was rescued. Sherilyn Jamison's mother, Connie, maintains from the start she believes somebody unalived the missing family. Well, we have two more suggestions, folks, so we're going to move on. Thank you, Rhino Rex. Actually, we have one more suggestion. Okay, then we can, I shouldn't be skipping here then. What did I skip? Connie lived with the Jamisons shortly before they vanished and discounted theories that linked the couple to illegal adult substances. Not in French, T. Plateau. Beauchamp. But in Australia, it is pronounced Beecham. In a recent interview with the Oklahoman, Connie said her theory hasn't changed, claiming that a religious cult is responsible for the disappearance. Like I've said from the very beginning, I think somebody unalived them. There's just no way that Bobby and Sherilyn would ever let anything happen to Madison unless something had been done to them. Connie, age 63, said that Sherilyn was on a hit list maintained by a religious cult operating in southeast Oklahoma. The state medical examiner's office has not identified the remains found earlier in the month, and it could be weeks or even months before they're able to do so. Really? Maybe weeks with dental records. I guess first they have to find the dentists. In the weeks and months following the Jamisons' disappearance, yeah, probably they have to find the dead. It'll take a long time right there, right? To find the dentist. The former sheriff said he believed a brown briefcase Sherilyn had may have been an important clue. He said he viewed surveillance video from the family's security system that showed Sherilyn placing the briefcase in her vehicle. That briefcase was never found. Nor was Sherilyn's small caliber handgun. I think it might have held a lot of cash, Beecham said of the briefcase. I've gone back and forth on this thing, but my latest theory, based on how the truck was parked and what I found in the truck, I think they were forced to stop and got out of the truck to meet with someone they recognized. And I think they either left willingly or by force. Yeah, when at the end of that old shotgun that his father had stashed away. Investigators also considered unaliving - self-harm from a hate letter that Sherilyn to her husband described Bobby as a hermit. A letter discussing unalivement also was found at the couple's Eufaula home following their disappearance. Hope you guys can translate that into English. They were certainly a family obsessed with death, Beecham said at the time. Following the family's disappearance, numerous people with connections to the Jamisons were questioned, including family members. Jack Jamison, Bobby's uncle, was questioned by the FBI. Jack was named as executor of the will of his father in 2008. Madison was named the sole beneficiary of her grandfather's estate at that time, cutting out Bobby and Starlet, and Bob Dean Jamison's ex-wife Starlet. What about Sherilyn? A family friend who lived with the Jamisons in the months before they vanished was questioned by the FBI as well. Beecham said of the family friend, he had a barrel stuck in his ear by Sherilyn. At first you think, great, here's someone with a motive, but he was cleared by the FBI. The last person known to see the Jamisons alive in 2009 was questioned as well. The man who lived in the mountainous area where the couple were looking for land offered little help. At the time of the disappearance, the man lived about a quarter mile from where the Jamisons' pickup was found. Beecham said, the man claimed he never saw the family after that, nor did he see anyone else go up or come down before or after them. Current Latimer County Sheriff Jesse James, yes, Jesse James, was a police officer in nearby Wilburton when the Jamisons went missing, said his investigators are waiting to hear from the state medical examiner's office before devoting resources to the case of the newly found remains. An incident report released by the sheriff's office on Wednesday, which includes GPS coordinates, shows the bodies were found in an extremely remote area, about 9 miles south of Kinta. There are no paved roads for miles around, and the area is densely wooded. The report also shows a man scouting for deer found 3 human skulls. A further search also turned up shoes, bits of clothing, and other bones and bone fragments scattered by animals. James said the case file on the Jamisons is very, very thick. Jesse James said that. And that his office and other law enforcement agencies have interviewed numerous people. When asked about his personal theory, he said, a lot of things have crossed my mind. And that's the end of that story. Thank you, Rhino Rex. At 43 past the hour, we come to our final suggestion. And that is from Verpine. Excuse me. According to Rhino Rex, I left out an important detail about something spray painted on the shipping container in which the family was living. Shipping container converted into a home, I guess. And the suggestion from Verpine is, ooh, looks interesting. The UFO seen over an Italian stadium in 1954. From the BBC News. The day UFOs stopped play. The play of a football game, evidently, i.e. soccer. This from the BBC.com. In a story written by Richard Padula, entitled The Day UFOs Stopped Play. And here, I take it of the stadium, which looks to be huge, in Italy where the appearance took place. It was October 27th in 1954, begins Mr. Padula. Eldergren says football. Football it is. A typically crisp autumn day in Tuscany. The mighty Fiorentina club was playing against its local rival, Pistoiese. 10,000 fans were watching in the concrete bowl of the Stadio Artemi Franchi. But just after halftime, the stadium fell eerily silent. Then a roar went up from the crowd. The spectators were no longer watching the match, but looking up at the sky, fingers pointing. The players stopped playing. The ball rolled and stood still. One of the footballers on the pitch, i.e. the field, was Ardito Mangini. He was something of a legend at the club and had played for Italy in the 1954 World Cup. He says, "I remember everything from A to Z. It was something that looked like an egg. It was moving slowly, very slowly. Everyone was looking up, and there was some kind of glitter coming down from the sky, and it was silver. We were astonished. We had never seen anything like it before. We were shocked. Absolutely. Play was suspended because spectators saw something in the sky, according to the report by the referee. Among the crowd was Gigi Boni, a long-life Fiorentina fan. Quote, I remember clearly seeing this incredible sight, he says. His description of multiple objects differs slightly from Mangini's. They were moving very fast, and then they just stopped. It all lasted a couple of minutes. I would like to describe them as being like Cuban cigars. They just reminded me of them. There's one picture, evidently, in the newspaper. Evidently, some of the silver flakes was caught by somebody. And there's the sample being held up in a glass bottle. This, I don't think, is from that, but probably some other incident. But we shall see. That's probably a picture taken at the time, showing a single egg. Boni has spent many years reliving that day in his mind. I think they were extraterrestrial, that's what I believe. And there's no other explanation. Another of the players, Romolo Tucci, still sprightly in his 70s, agrees. In those years, everybody was talking about aliens. Everybody was talking UFOs, and we had the experience. We saw them. We saw them directly, for real. Synchro 505 says, someone mentioned in an article I read that cigar-shaped UFOs can look spherical if they're flying towards you or flying towards the camera. Good point, Mike. Thank you. The incident at the stadium cannot simply be interpreted as mass hysteria. Excuse me. There were numerous UFO sightings in many towns across Tuscany that day and over the days that followed. According to some eyewitness accounts, a ray of white light was seen in the sky coming from Prato, north of Florence. Another man who relishes the chance to speak about that day is Roberto Panatti. the president of Italy's National UFO Center. Hey, they have a link. CUN Italia Network. It was 20 years ago today. The Internet's website birthday. CUN birthday. News, FAQ, files, the Italian fascist files, UFOs in Italy. What's the FAQ like? Translate, please. Ooh, it's moving as it translates. This looks like more than a FAQ, and in a very unfriendly FAQ format. The first one being ufology as a profession. The history of the CUN. Yeah, let's check that one out. All in Italian, but I agree. No, I reject. No automatic translation here. And that's a shame. So there'll be none for the others either. Including, what is one to do in the case of a sighting and possible landing? How to report online. Statistics. A map with major UFO waves between 1890 and 1990. That I must see. Interesting. Soviet Union, right here, 1949 and 1966. United States, and here's listed approximately 8 or 9 occurrences. Central America, Brazil, 1957, 1962. Chile, 65, a single occurrence, listed here. South Africa, 1972. Central, 1966. North Africa, 50 and 54. Australia, 1965, a single occurrence listed here. Scandinavia, 1946. 1946? When was Roswell? AI, come to the rescue. When was the so-called Roswell incident involving a crashed UFO? (1947), a year after Scandinavia. He has written many books about UFOs, and his home in the center of Florence is stuffed full of alien memorabilia, posters of old Italian B-movies, framed newspaper articles, and black and white photographs of flying saucers. Benatti says, the players and the public were stunned seeing these objects above the stadium. At the time, the newspaper spoke of aliens from Mars. Of course, now we know that's not so, but we may conclude that it was an intelligent phenomenon, a technological phenomenon, and one that cannot be linked with anything we know of Earth. End quote. He's also intrigued by the material that fell from the sky, what Mangini described as silver glitter. Back before they produced glitter? 1977, huh? They must have had glitter. Ask AI. Did the decorative substance known as glitter exist in 1977? Wait, is that the proper year? I'm going to say 77. Yes. Was it 77? That being from 57, so that one's not going to help us. 1954. Yes, AI. How about 1954? Yes. It was invented in 1934. This caption, a sketch of UFOs over the stadium by Silvio Neri. Looks kind of low. They're looking like eye level, almost eye level, these people in the expensive seats. Or are those the cheap seats? Those are probably the cheap seats, right? Unless you're in a box, right? Panatti says, it is a fact that at the same time the UFOs were seen over Florence, there was a strange sticky substance falling from above. In English, we call this angel hair. The only problem is after a short period of time, it disintegrates. Not out of a bottle, a glass bottle, I would wager. As a 10-year-old boy, he witnessed this phenomenon himself. I remember in broad daylight seeing the roofs of the houses in Florence covered in this substance for 1 hour, and like snow, it just evaporated. No one knows what this strange substance has to do with the UFO. Courtesy of Roberto Panatti. That being maybe the angel hair? Variously described by witnesses as similar to cotton wool or cobwebs, the substance was hard to collect because it disintegrated on contact, but some were determined to find out what it was. One of them was a journalist at the Florentine newspaper La Nazione, the late Giorgio Bettini. In 2003, he told an Italian television program, Voyager, how on that day he received hundreds of phone calls about the sightings. From the offices of La Nazione in the center of town, his own view of the sky was blocked by the cathedral. So he went to the top of the newspaper building to see what everyone was talking about. The 81-year-old recalled seeing shiny balls moving fast towards the dome of the cathedral. Bettini ventured out to investigate. He came across a wood outside the city that was covered in the white fluff. He gathered several samples by rolling them up on a matchstick and took them to the Institute of Chemical Analysis at the University of Florence. When he got there, he found others who had done the same. That looks identical to the picture in the newspaper. Let's see. That finger there, the down curve of the glare there, the smiley face of the glare here, one spotlight here, and followed by a string of spotlights. Yeah, same picture. captioned, "A sample of the mysterious angel hair was photographed for the newspapers." Archive of Loki Forensi. Loki Forensi? Could it have come from the UFO? A U.S. Air Force pilot turned astronomer, James Magaha, from the Grasslands Observatory in southeastern Arizona, has spent more than 40,000 hours staring at the night sky. He said, "It's an absolutely silly idea." Okay. There's the other side of the story. Where's the analysis by the lab? Rhino Rex says, "Welcome, Taoist viewer. Greetings, inhabitants of Earth. As a peace offering, we have brought you the wonders of asbestos." "60 years later, the chances of determining the cause of the incident are slim." Science writer Philip Ball says, "I wouldn't trust any reports of an old and strange event like this unless I had seen the data." He agrees that the elements said to have been observed in the angel hair don't seem to tally with scientific theory. The scientific theory that was advanced, which I skipped over, which is a con, which I do not cover. We don't cover the cons here. Only the good stuff. Oh, it looks like the lab analysis resulted in magnesium and calcium, boron and silica, the main elements that the white fluff contained. Therefore, it could not have been that scientific theory that I skipped. So it all remains a mystery. No matter what the scientists say, those who were there are convinced that what they saw was unlike anything on Earth. Romolo Tucci feels lucky just to have been there. His eyes dance excitedly as he remembers the day. Quote, "I was spellbound, and also I was inexplicably happy." Good article. Gotchaman says, "Can you get mesothelioma from a contact with alien asbestos?" The law offices of Mulder and Scully are here to get you the result you deserve. Thank you. Thank you, Verpine, who always has good suggestions. Well, since there is no more movie night, I can't do the movie recap. But don't forget, Wednesday mornings, that video drops on YouTube. Banned by YouTube. Until then, may God bless and protect you all.